Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kevin Nealon. Our top story tonight, it appears congratulations are in order. We are monitoring things closely as details continue to come in, but it seems, yes, I have confirmation. We're talking about you, Joseph. Congratulations. You really outdid yourself this time, which probably wasn't that hard. Our team has discovered footage from one of the many celebrations taking place in your honor. Stay away from drugs, kids. Now for some deeper analysis, let's go live via satellite to our special guest commentator, Other Kevin. Other Kevin, what are your thoughts on all this? Speechless, Kevin. Wow. Just wow. Insightful as always. Thank you. Well, I'm now being told that we are out of time and that I should pull this lever. I'm Kevin Nealon. Thanks for watching. Take care, Jimmy. Thanks, Bob.
Joseph Jaffe is not famous. I'm kinda, but I'm Ross. You know, Jaffe is nothing more than a zombie extra. You know. Joseph Jaffe is not famous.
Woody hoo!
Woody hoo! Out here in the stream, as in the streaming era, I fight for my dreams. I get my heart into my living.
You encourage drinking or marijuana use on the show?
I don't need a fight, cause Evelyn's right. Or you could sponsor an emu. I'm Batman.
That's your tweetable moment, folks. That's your tweetable moment. If Mark Zuckerberg makes a metaverse, is that Web3? No, it's Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse.
He's like us. He's flawed.
Just a little segue.
That's some dope shit, dude. That's really, really nice.
Woody hoo!
Woody hoo! Well, hooty hoo to you too. I sound like that character on The Simpsons. Hello. Well, hello. How are you? Hope you are well. I'm playing my Irish music to show that I am an ignorant American. Well, I've got an educated, intelligent American on the show who lives in England, but then again, I'm a South African living in the US. So happy St. Patrick's Day to you. I kind of like this music. It makes me want to dance a jig, which is very tough when you're doing seated soliloquies. But maybe I'm just happy that my mom is watching, keeping me honest. As always, hope you enjoy the show. Mom, you're going to learn a little bit about content. But before we get to content, let's talk about collectives. No, Brian, there will be no dancing. As you know, I'm dancing a jig of joy, because I just launched the Alpha Collective, and rumor has it that we're going to be minting very, very soon. For those of you that don't know about the collective, we are a premium community that helps our members unlock the value and opportunity of the business of Web3. And yes, we are minting soon. If you would like to win a pass, see, on this show, we don't ask anything from you except for your time, your engagement, your comments, and your firstborn child. But other than that, we don't ask for anything. But in fact, we like to give. So if you'd like to win a full access membership pass worth 1 ETH, that's $3,000 right now, all you have to do is go to alphacollective.xyz and sign up. And that could be yours. James, you can do it too. In fact, you should do it as well. He was about to drink, and now he's like logging onto a website and capturing his or we are capturing his email. Content is a big part of this, and we're going to be talking a lot about content today. As far as content is concerned, these are my partners in crime, the founders, the advisors to the collective, and probably our tentpole offering is content. 52 alpha talks delivered by 52 incredible luminaries, influencers, thought leaders, subject matter experts, executives, entrepreneurs across 52 weeks. Here are just some of our Alpha Talk speakers. And every single week, we are going to be launching or releasing another 4. We are this week releasing Charlene Lee, releasing them. They weren't being held captive. We are releasing the news that Charlene Lee, Jessica Joins, Mark Schaefer, and Mitch Joel are the next 4 being added to our roster. And we certainly hope that you will be a part of it soon. But enough about me. Let's focus on James Scherer. Now, as I've come to learn, it's sheer as in sheer class, as in sheer beauty, as in sheer magnificence, or as he said to me, no, it's like shearing a sheep. Just don't call him Scherer or Scherer, and I won't, unless, of course, we're talking about Alan Scherer, who, James, I don't know if you know who Alan Scherer is, but it depends on how long you've been in the Queen's country. But, he's a footballer that knows a thing or two about scoring goals. He's no Harry Kane, but you know what? We can't all be perfect. And I'm just realizing as I look at myself on the screen, I'm almost like the 5th speaker. My square is almost kind of perfectly aligned. But enough about that. Let's talk about Friday. Fridays, NFT Fridays. We've got the folks from Angel Alliance, the NFT collection that is literally launching, if not on Friday, over the weekend, but it's within days. So if you want to understand a little bit about what makes this collection tick, who the founders are, what their vision is, what their mission is, what their roadmap is, maybe what their content strategy is, you'll want to join us on Friday. And as always, we will do a drawing for a Meta athlete, and the folks over at Angel Alliance will be giving away an NFT as well. So just look at this. All you do is you get NFTs. You can win a membership pass, and oh, by the way, you also get Jaffe coin. So here is your QR code to be able to get Jaffe coin. And remember, the QR code is only live while the show is live. So if you're watching this, on demand after the fact, you'll still enjoy it, but you won't get Jaffe coin. It is really part of what I believe is the streaming era, this creator economy ecosystem, etc., etc. Let's stop with the buzzword bingo, and let's talk about today's seated soliloquy, which is called debate. Now, when I wrote Join the Conversation, I said that conversation was defined as between 2 or more sides, not between 2 or more people. Quite frankly, you could have a conversation with yourself. I mean, what do they say? The first sign of madness is talking to yourself. The second sign is listening to yourself. The third sign is responding. But you really can have a conversation with yourself if you are secure, if you have that ability to get to know yourself and to question certain truths. But let's go back to the idea of 2 or more sides, not 2 or more people, because a big problem with where we are today, even where Web 2 is today, is that, as the old saying goes, what is the sound of one hand clapping, right? It doesn't make a sound. What's the point in just surrounding ourselves with people that are exactly like ourselves, that may as well be clones? You may as well be staring into a mirror and talking to yourself. How are you going to learn? How are you going to stretch? How are you going to grow without being challenged, without hearing a different perspective, a different side, and not always something that you are in agreement with? Actually, one of the things we're doing with our 52 Alpha Talk speakers is we're actually going to be recruiting speakers that think that Web3 is the devil. We want people to come in and say, you're all mad, you're all crazy, you're all fools, you're all charlatans. It's nothing but a giant Ponzi scheme. We want people to be able to because maybe there is truth to what they say. In fact, there is truth to everything. There is always truth to every point of view, every human being's perspective. You just have to find it. You just have to look hard enough for it, and then be able to, if you because it is an art and a science, be able to separate and be able to discern and to be able to use your own evaluation rubric, if you will, to make heads or tails or sense of it, and to make your mind up for yourself. So that's why I called this debate. We had an alpha debate on Twitter Spaces last night. We're going to have an alphabet. Is that Freudian? I don't know. An alpha debate today in Clubhouse at 4, where we're going to question whether Web 2 is the enemy of Web 3 or not. Is it Web 3 and Web 2? Is it Web 3 or Web 2, or is it Web 3 versus Web 2? And in that discussion, I learn, I grow, I challenge my own perspective. Someone actually said last night, they said that maybe Web 3 is its own enemy. Maybe Web 3 is its own worst enemy. What a great concept as well. And how can we take that and learn from it? How many times in the startup world, in business, have we said it's ours to lose? And the only way we lose is if we got in our own way, if we weren't able to get out of our own way. You don't get there in a succession theater. You don't get there when you surround yourself with yes men, yes people, yes women. You get there when somebody is brave enough, bold enough, empowered enough to challenge you, to challenge norms, to challenge assumptions, to debate between not two or more people, but two or more sides. And with that said, it is now time. I have a feeling we're not going to be debating much. In fact, I'm fairly certain I'm just going to be agreeing, because I'm a content guy and I believe in content. It's time to welcome James. But first of all, little mention. Brian Piper says, diversity is the key to growth. Ain't that the truth? Let me tell you a little bit about James. Well, you've already learned that he is an American. He's an Englishman in New York. No, he's an American in London. Maybe in fact, I don't think he is in London. James Scherer is the VP of Growth at Codeless, a content marketing agency working with unicorns like Monday.com to drive growth through content at a huge scale. He lives in the UK with his wife, where he enjoys hiking the historic countryside and trying exciting new microbrews. So the only question that I have is, why are we not drinking one of them right now? James, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a good question. For me, it's 5:15 p.m., so it's an even better question.
So when somebody says it's 5 o'clock somewhere, literally it is 5 o'clock over there. So feel free.
And yeah, I'm actually in Wales, so not London. I'm about 230 miles west.
In Wales, the homeland of Gareth Bale. No doubt you've heard that name before.
Yeah, Gareth Bale and a lot of sheep, which is the whole shearing thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you sure you're not in New Zealand? I'm just checking.
No, we're in the other sheep-oriented country.
Oh, so there you go. Well, James, I am excited to have a conversation with you regarding content. But before we get there, we have to celebrate. Speaking of content, today is Cuddly Kitten Day. These are not sheep. These are cuddly kittens. I'm sure, there's a content question in there, believe it or not. You just have to look really, really hard. I've always said that when it comes to brands, when it comes to businesses, it helps when you're in the baby business, when your product is cute babies, right? It helps when it's dogs or cats. If you're advertising dogs or cats, or using puppies or kittens in your advertising, in your stories. But what happens when you're in the B2B business? What happens when you're in the technology business? How can you tell stories and really invest in effective content marketing and content strategy when ultimately your product is widgets or component parts or even SaaS as opposed to kittens?
See, I think content's far more successful for those B2B and SaaS businesses than they are for the cuddly kittens. Though actually, from a content perspective, what's interesting about that isn't that it's Cuddly Kitten Day. It's that you're creating content for the current event that people, I mean, not necessarily that one, but like within social media marketing, for instance, the idea of creating content focused around what people are already talking about, and content wise as well, like creating blog content that's focused around current events or something that's changed within your industry. That's absolutely a content best practice. So yeah, cuddly kittens, but B, March 23rd. So it's the current event regarding the cuddly kittens. So yeah, a couple of the best practices there. I
was going to say, it sounds, by the way, like a fantastic NFT collection, the Cuddly Kitten. I mean, we've got lazy lions and we've got pudgy penguins. Why not a cuddly kitten?
See, I just feel bad for the not so cuddly kittens, and that like is like it's Cuddly Kitten Day, but when is like mediocre looking kitten day? Is that later?
It doesn't roll off the tongue, the
No, it
mediocre
doesn't.
looking, but the ugly kittens, that could be interesting.
Absolutely. See, that's the niche.
and there's another best practice in that as well, which is contrast and unexpected, right? Ugly kittens. I mean, everyone's always gravitating towards the cuddly kittens. Spare a thought for those, the kittens that only their mother could say was ugly.
Also, the idea of creating controversial content that like focuses on how much you love ugly. Anyway, we're getting off topic just immediately.
Are we though? Controversial content. It's very alliterative too. The controversial content of the cuddly kittens. All right, we'll stop. But I will warn you that we do have to go from the ridiculous in order to get to the sublime. So I'm not done with you yet. We still had to dig a little bit deeper to find the embarrassing content regarding James, who is sheer.
Oh, wow.
You are clean. Your background check, you passed with flying colors. All we could find out about you is that you're writing a book about surviving in the forest of British Columbia. So we got to ask about that, which is why did you find the need to survive, or was it voluntary survival? Tell us that story.
So it's actually fiction. So I've never actually survived. So really what it is it's a poorly researched guide to surviving the forest. I loved a book when I was a kid called Hatchet. I also was like My Side of the Mountain and Where the Red Fern Grows. Those were kind of the books that I loved. And so a couple years ago when I was living in British Columbia, I started writing a fiction story about like a teenage boy essentially who gets lost in the wilds of British Columbia and has some adventures and stuff. So I guess that's my embarrassing kind of factoid for you, because it's not particularly well written. I did it very quickly, and it hasn't been edited by anybody or seen by anybody, and never will be. But I finished it. I mean, I didn't finish it. I wrote as many words as there are in a book, which is very different from finishing a book.
I want to process that for a moment. I wrote you talk about managing expectations. I wrote as many words as there are in a book. You know, you could have literally written. Are you saying you could have written lipso ipso directum factum?
Lorem ipsum, the entire novel.
Lauren, that's it. I don't think so. I think you're underselling yourself. I think we've got a best-selling fiction author in the studio right now. That's what I think.
Yeah. Let's say that. And then in 10 years, when I write a completely different book and it does okay, you can be the first one to have said it. Let's go with that.
Well, I'll tell you, that is good writing in of itself, right? I wrote as many words as there should be in a book. What that tells me, it's a great quote, right? It says, I did the basics. I did the bare minimum. I wrote the words, but would those words come together? Would those words be transformed? Would they leap off the page? Would magic be created? And you'll just have to watch this space. I'll tell you what you won't do is you won't get any secrets out of this man, because we found out he's been with his wife since he was 19 years old, and there's nothing surprising, embarrassing, fun facts about him other than his fictional story. So he was probing me, and he even said to me, I love this. This was the best comment I've ever received in 350 episodes of the show. You said, I didn't care much for your questionnaire. And I've got news for you, James. My questionnaire doesn't care much for you either. So we mum's the word. We don't know what we know about you is what you have told us and what you want us to know about you. You are not an oversharer. Would that be? You're not an overshare. Would that
Nice.
be? Would that be fair?
Well, so the questionnaire was, what is something that no one else knows about you? And because I've been with my wife for 14 years, there's nothing, like, I don't have any secrets from her. Like, I have secrets from you and all of the listeners and watchers out there, I'm sure.
We want to
But
know.
my wife, like, but oh yeah, no, I'm not a spy. It was just, yeah, like, my wife, I like her a lot. We've been together for a long time, and she knows all. I'm also not particularly exotic or interesting. I mean, I have interesting parts of me, but I'm not a spy. Let's just throw it that, like, it's not. Yeah.
Well, just hold on. We're just hearing from our producers that your wife likes you too. So the feeling
Oh,
is mutual.
I didn't know she had access to them, but yeah, that's great. I'm glad
I
she's
mean,
listening. My wife, your mom. Let's do this. What else do we need?
exactly. We have an audience of 4, and that's all we need. This is about intimacy. Russell is watching, and Russell says it's all about content. And this might be a really good opportunity to jump into. I always find a quote for my guests. In this case, it was kind of funny because the quote is actually from a previous guest. I'm sure you know many of the luminaries in the space, the Politzis and the
Mm,
Roses
mm,
of the world. But this quote doesn't come from them. It's just a simple one that says, content isn't king, it's the kingdom.
mm.
And I'd never heard it expressed that way. This is by the Norse god himself, Lee Odin. Um, how do you see content? I mean, and James, I've heard all of the different spins on it. Content is king, context is queen. Like we've heard all spins about content and context, and the jester and the king and the queen and the prince and the pauper. But this is one that says content isn't just king; it's the entire kingdom. How do you see content fitting into the royal environment?
I think I disagree with that. I don't think content is king anymore. I think that content is a really high value knight who is in your court and does their job really well. And for what you feed them, they bring a lot of acclaim and attention to your court and to your, like, whatever. But I don't think that anymore. Instantly, you brought up Mark Schaefer before as one of your speakers, I think, for your event in the future. And
That's right.
so I've always been a massive fan of Mark's. And 2014, he notoriously came up with the theory of content shock. The idea that as we continue to publish ridiculous amounts of content any given day, week, or month, the return on that investment decreases. And again, that was 8 years ago that he published that article. And the fact of the matter is that if we say that like that content is the only way your business can grow, or content is the best way your business can grow, we are oversimplifying this conversation. I think the fact is, the first question you asked me is like, how does, if you don't sell cuddly kittens, how do you do this? The fact of the matter is that if you sell cuddly kittens, you'll get more value probably out of PPC than you will out of significant investment in inbound. If you were in B2C, it may be a toss up, if not more value, higher ROI from investing in social and PPC and retargeting and that kind of, like, listings, sponsored listings, affiliate revenue than you may from content. So I think content is king is an oversimplification. Does that mean that content isn't like an incredibly valuable part of your court who can seriously deliver, let's just skip the analogy, traffic, leads, and sales to your business? 100%. For every business. There are some businesses, though, for whom it works significantly better, significantly more quickly, and with a lower level of investment than other businesses. And just simplifying it down to it's amazing for everybody is no longer true and hasn't been long before Mark Schaefer said content shock is a thing, and then we should consider how and why we're creating every piece we're creating.
I want to let's go back to content shock for a second, or a version of that, because in the Web 2 world, in the social media world, we were introduced to the concept of oversharing. And we all understand, whether it's in the content business or even the in any business, there is a saturation point. There is a point at which too much is too much. And it's funny, like, even going back, it's a big part of my life now, thinking about launching this project, this Alpha Collective. But intellectually, what's interesting about it is it's a premium community with only 1,000 memberships. And we keep and we're very clear, even in messaging, to say only 1,000, because 1,000 is not a big number when you think about the fact that Procter & Gamble have over 1,000 marketers, and that's just one company out of not just 1,000 but several thousand, and it's not just companies. And so, I know one of the things that you have been thinking about, and I would love to hear your perspective, because there is a debate going on, and it is the content versus quality discussion. So I would love for you to set that up. Set up the content versus quality. Is this a quant versus qual discussion?
Yeah. So it actually is quantity versus quality. So the idea is it better for your business to create 50 low quality pieces of content a month or 10 high quality ones? And it's a controversial discussion that's been going on for a long time. And most people that you'll have on your podcast, it's very much in mode, or the popular podcast guest answer to it is always quality. That it's all about quality. That there's no point in creating anything unless it's amazing. The Brian Dean and Backlinko talked about the skyscraper strategy. I remember for years there was this perception that like look at the search engine results page for everything you're looking to write on, and then create something 10 times better. That was like the ethos behind content creation for a long time.
And who was that?
Well, Brian Dean and Backlinko is the skyscraper strategy, which is basically the idea of creating something that's 10 times better than anything else.
I like that.
And he's done that, and he's done that to great success. For most businesses, I no longer believe that quality is the answer exclusively. I think so this is my approach. I'll talk about how I create content strategies for our clients. If you're starting from scratch, then we create 3 to 5 categories of content that you want to be found for. Within each category, you have your pillars. There's a pillar and post method, which people may be familiar with. So each category has pillars. Pillars are your highly competitive, high search volume key phrases that you're going to create like big major content around, but you're not necessarily going to rank for those immediately without a lot of energy and money and etc. Then you create support content. So each category has 3 pillars and then 15 to 20 support pieces of content. Now, those go live concurrently. You publish as much of it as you can. You get your pillars up first, so they're indexed as soon as possible. And then you support them with content that backlinks to those internally to those pillar pieces. Now, you publish them all as fast as you can. And the reason that I say that is because you want to get them all indexed. And then, and here's where we bring in the quantity versus quality thing, you keep a really close eye on where every one of those articles is ranking. Because if they start ranking well, then the value of the links to your pillars increases. The support content starts ranking well, the value of the backlinks increases. And something that people always forget is that SEO and content creation is not just about throwing all of this into the black hole of Google and hoping some of it gets any eyes and any light on it whatsoever. You throw it out there, see what sticks a little bit, throw some spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks a little bit, and then go back into that URL and optimize it. So publish high volumes of good quality content, not the most, don't spend $2,000 on every piece. Spend a good amount of money with some good writers, invest reasonably into SEO and everything, and then throw it at the wall. And then keep a really close eye on your analytics. And if it sticks a little bit, then come back in and tweak it and optimize it and add some word count and add custom images and add some more semantic key phrases that align from an SEO perspective. And then it'll go from the second page to the first. And as soon as you start moving from the second page to the first, you start getting traffic. Not a huge amount of traffic, because we're not talking about your pillar pieces yet necessarily, but we're talking about building momentum through publication of high volumes of content that you then come in and optimize piecemeal. And then as soon as they're optimized, as soon as they move to the first page, you're driving traffic. Traffic is one of the main drivers it's one of the main variables in SEO. So immediately we can affect the SEO algorithm simply by having something get there and something rank. And if it starts ranking on the first page of Google, again, then the backlink, the internal link to your other content, is more valuable than if it's not in the top 100 search results. So the quantity versus quality conversation is less about either or and more about both. Do a solid foundation of good quality content and then publish a lot of it and then optimize it and tweak it and make it amazing. And that's the ethos that I've kind of had for the past couple of years. And that's what I've seen work with a lot of our clients more recently than, 10 years ago when it was a whole different world.
And for those of you that are watching at home or at work or at the home office or on the treadmill, wherever you are, first of all, it makes me think of this debate that we're having at the moment, right? Which is, it's not or, it's and, it's a combination, and it's not a perfect combination. That's what people also don't realize. It might be 20 parts of one and 80 of the other. It might be 50-50. It might be 10-90 or 90-10. The other thing is, what's clear to me is that it's quality, it's quantity, and then there is an element of art, of science, of process, a playbook. There is a system. I mean, I was thinking as you were talking, which is like, if anybody needed, you can thank me for this later. If anybody needed a reason why they needed to work with a content marketing agency, this is the reason, because it is, it's not meant to be so complicated that you can't figure it out, but it's meant to be complicated enough that you need, you're not going to perform open heart surgery on yourself. And you're not going to allow your best friend to do it either. You need to call in a professional. And the thing that strikes me, I remember one of my first guests on the show was Marcus Sheridan. We've had so many content mavens that have figured out, that have built businesses around a blog post, around an article, that it's just to me, it reminds me and it reminds us about the importance of everything that happens after the ink dries, which maybe actually speaks beautifully to what you said, which is you wrote enough words that would constitute a book. But guess what? As someone who's written 5 books, the work only begins when you submit the manuscript.
100%. And going back to, again, to Mark Schaefer's content shock piece, for instance, I don't know, but I bet you that if you asked Mark Schaefer, which one of the articles that you wrote this year did you know was going to go viral? Which one of these articles did you know is going to, like, when you type in Mark Schaefer's name now on Google, the top suggested thing is Mark Schaefer content shock. But he didn't know that the article was going to just absolutely click with Google and absolutely click with his community and get incredible amounts of engagement. You throw content at the wall and you do as much as you can to increase the chance of it clicking. But you can't know. I've been doing SEO for about 10 years. And I've been doing it pretty intensely. And I don't feel confident about any piece of content more than I do any other. for any of our clients. You create content with intention based on the domain ranking, the domain authority. You target key phrases related to their business and related to where they are within their stage of business. You link as well as you can. You create all of, you do everything you can possibly do that to do because this is your job. And then you hope. SEO, content creation, like social media, there is a component of luck is not the right word, but there is a component of there's unknown variables that just happen to work. And I can't tell you they're going to, and I can't tell you they're not going to. So when it looks like they're going to start, you need to be super hot on it, because otherwise you'll miss an opportunity. So that's why I talk about optimization and coming back into a piece of content after the fact as one of the key, if not the key component to content success now. Do everything you need to do as well as you can do it, go live, and then more importantly, come back 3 months later. Otherwise, Google and SEO is a black hole. It really is.
Yeah, and it's in some cases you can set up the systems, the processes, the flags, the alerts. I mean, I look at trust me, I'm trying not to nod my head so vociferously that I actually dislocate a part of my body. But just take myself as a creator, as a newly found talk show host since COVID hit. When you do 5 shows a week, you don't have time to do anything. You don't have time to go back a day, let alone 3 months later. That's why I'm like nodding. And here's what I yes, I'm going to say the word do. Here's what I do is I take notes while I'm actually having, the interview, which is hard. So first of all, I'll tell you 2 things. One is these are my prep notes. That's why in my silly questionnaire, I say, hey, what's on your mind? I generally don't even need, truthfully, someone to fill that out. I mean, we discussed one of them. We might get to AI, we may not. But if I didn't do this, if I didn't look and say content is the night at 23 minutes or the skyscraper approach at 28 minutes or pillars and posts at 29 minutes, all of this would just dissipate. It would disappear. And I would just maybe remember one thing about you, which may not even be the right thing. I might remember, oh, we joked about his name sounded like sheep and he was in Wales and Gareth Bale. So that wouldn't help me. It wouldn't help my clients. It wouldn't help your clients. And so the work begins now by going and saying, okay, what do I do with all of these sound bites? Do I create little clips, quotes? Do I now go and re-content marketing the whole thing? Or we're going to segue back into AI. Do I use a platform or a product? Do I hire an agency? Or do I use a piece of technology that's going to almost automatically pause out and create these clips for me? So there was a lot in there. I've laid a buffet out. Fill your plate with whatever you want and respond in any way that you choose.
Okay. Two things with AI. I talked before about the quantity versus quality dichotomy and the controversy about it. And I said very flippantly, make sure that your content is, really good quality and publish a lot of it. In order to publish a lot of good quality content, you need to be able to create good quality content consistently and easily and without crazy investment. And the primary way that, and I'll just describe how the agency does it. We create about 350, 400 pieces of 2,000 word articles every month. We have 75 freelance writers. It's a big thing. And so here's our process that can be kind of broken down for every business of every kind. And it does revolve around not so much AI, though that is a component of it, but software. We use a very clearly delineated process for content production. It starts with topic ideation, which we use Ahrefs for. We import the CSV files into Google Sheets, identify topics, get them approved by the client or by the content strategy team. And then they go into ClickUp, which is our project management tool to facilitate the entire production process. The writers use outlines, which are built on outline templates that are specific to each client, so that like they're bringing to the table exactly what the client's looking for. They complete those outline templates. It goes to the editorial team. Then it goes to the client for review and approval, and then it goes to draft. After they've drafted, they use a tool called Phrase, which is similar to ClearScope or MarketMuse or SEO Surfer, which you may be familiar with, to basically identify what is this content missing compared to the competition. And those tools, which is really the true AI, Phrase is a tool that says, okay, for the target key phrase that you're looking to rank for, you are missing these semantic key phrases, this subject matter that HubSpot article has included, or the whatever competitor content is ranking. Here's what you're missing. So when the writer can see that and add that back in, then we know on a foundational level that the content they're creating is optimized for search, which is, from our standpoint, having that kind of like foundation of software allows us to standardize the process and standardize the content that we create. It is all good. It's all excellent. And then it's the thought leadership that the experts bring to the table. The editors who do the energy, like put the energy and the time and the energy into it. The custom images that we get from our designers. So that all adds like the last little like 10 or 15% that makes it truly exceptional. But all of that software in a clearly delineated process takes us 75% of the way to an excellent piece of content. And it does it quickly, and it streamlines the entire thing, and we feel confident about everything that we're doing there, all built on the back of AI and software. God, our stack is a mile long. Like, it really is. I got you through to the draft process, but there's about 5 more tools after the fact that we use. Let alone, God, we use Grammarly and Autocrit for plagiarism. We use writer.com for client-specific brand guidelines, editing that. We use Wordable to import software, to import from the Google Doc into the CMS. Loom videos to film everything and like send it to the client. Here's what we did. Here's why we did what we did. So not so much AI, but software. Software allows you to create really high quality content at scale. That is literally the answer. It is not a super secretive process. It is using the right tools well, is how every serious content agency is doing it, and every serious content team is doing it. So that's the first bit of this. The second bit is AI written content. And you alluded to it, the idea of like, am I transcripting this and turning it into social media content or to blog content or whatever it is? Or in my world's case, the content space, the content creation, blog content creation space. Am I having a bot write this article for me? It's an interesting topic. I know a lot of our writers are legitimately perhaps terrified this is going to completely ruin their careers, because there's already AI that is writing articles on Business Insider, and a lot of the financial content is moving towards being written by bots, because if it's just like, can you put a sentence between these two stock valuations or increases or decreases, it's relatively straightforward, that type of content. I think within the B2C space, we'll see AI written content, product pages in the near future, if not already. I think medical probably as well. Those kind of fact-based, like single, quantitative data. That I think is going to go sooner than later the way of AI. Within my space, the main SaaS B2B space, by definition, AI can't bring anything new to the table. You can't do thought leadership. You can't write content shock. It's a new idea that Mark Schaefer put into words because he's a thought leader in the content space. Skyscraper content. We're talking about the content that really clicks with Google and clicks with the community and is amazing, is thought leadership content. It's bringing something new. By definition, AI can't do that, period. It can only regurgitate. And there's a lot of criticism within the content space of like, all content is regurgitated content. I mean, all bad content is regurgitated content for sure, but the best content is novel. It is unique. It is bringing something new, even as small as it brings, like whatever little quirk, whatever little nuance it brings to the table that's new. It's still something that AI can't do, and that is what works with the community, works to drive engagement, social media engagement, as well as community engagement, newsletter open rates. All of that is brought about by new and controversial and novel thought. So I think that at least for the time being, my SaaS and B2B writers can breathe easy. If you're doing copywriting for product or B2C pages or medical or financial or investment content, maybe look behind you. It's coming.
I got a fright there. I mean, I found that to be absolutely fascinating, scary, but also very uplifting, because I am a thought leader. I am a writer. And, by the way, Brian says, thanks so much for sharing your process and stack. Very, very helpful.
Glad to hear it.
And I take away another end. It's certainly who wins between the human and the machine. Maybe it isn't the humans versus the machines. It's about the combination or the partnership. But again, knowing when it's not always humans and machines. It's humans, then machines, then humans, then machines. And it's really being, it's knowing when to pull, when to push back, or when to pull back, or however you want to look at it. Let's take a quick break. It is Wellness Wednesdays today. And some people might feel maybe that they're burning out or suffering from mental fatigue when you got that little content masterclass. But with that said, Whitney Lauritsen is our resident Wellness Wednesday expert. And here is her vignette, her contribution for today.
I had the honor of having Marcus Sheridan on one of my podcasts about e-commerce today, and he had something really brilliant to say in response to a big challenge we faced. We recorded this show live on Twitter Spaces, and for the first time, my co-hosts and I ran into a ton of tech difficulties that we had never faced before. And it was really embarrassing because, well, if you know anything about Marcus, he is a very experienced public speaker, and all of us wanted to show up with our A game. We wanted to not mess up. We wanted to look professional. And when tech difficulties happen, especially when we feel like we're fumbling through them, it can feel really embarrassing, and many of us can perceive that as being unprofessional. But fortunately, Marcus handled the situation with so much grace, despite the fact that it took about 30 minutes for us to figure it out, which I was concerned was a big waste of his time. When we finally did figure it out, here's how he responded. He said, one of the biggest differentiators with individuals and companies is the willingness to embrace the messy that comes with figuring stuff out. The companies that expect everything to go smooth or be perfect or just crush it coming out of the gates, they're not going to be very good, and they're not going to withstand the test of time. The companies that are like, okay, we know this is going to be a little bit of a mess, but let's still lean into it. Let's embrace the messy, and we're going to go on and figure this out. Those are the companies that are doing the exceptional things right now. I hope that helps you, because maybe you can relate to this. Maybe you have felt embarrassed or ashamed. Maybe you have felt very uncomfortable when you don't think that you're up to your A game. You don't feel like you're doing things right. Maybe they feel really far from perfection, or they don't meet your standards of professionalism. Keep that in mind. Embrace the messy. Those are very wise words. If you're not familiar with Marcus yet, I really recommend that you go check him out, especially on LinkedIn, where he has phenomenal posts. And hopefully Jaffe will link to him so that you can easily find it. And if you would like to listen to that whole podcast episode, you can hear how messy it is And I can link to that too. That's the live e-commerce podcast, which I co-host, and lots of great tips there for e-commerce.
Embrace the messy. Embrace the messy. What how do you interpret that as a content master marketer? Does it mean content has to be perfect? Does it I guess it also implies the ability to test, learn, evolve, optimize. There's probably a lot of insight coming out of that. How do you embrace the messy in the content world?
How I took that, I mean, going right back to where we left off, the idea of bringing something new and novel and unique to a piece of content after the software is done with it, after the AI has met all, ticked all the boxes you need to tick. We have clients who, we work off clear writer's guide, brand guidelines. And I think some of the clients who embrace being messy are the clients whose content ends up feeling the most human and feeling the most engaging and natural. And I, in my role in content strategy, often urge clients who are wanting to go down the super professional route to allow themselves to be professional on their site, be professional in emails if you want to, be professional in your sales approach. It is really challenging to engage with a community through written content if you hide your personality and your humanness and your flair behind a strict code of professional guidelines. Cussing in content, bringing in casual language, incomplete sentences, exclamation points, even emojis. They set your content apart far more visually and visibly than than expertise even does, or than a new thought even does. So the idea of embracing the messy resonates with me so long as you're doing all the things you need to do. Do everything you need to do, and then embrace the messy on top of it. If
And
you
often,
just embrace the messy, then you're just creating content that is a mess. Which
right, and
isn't-
and if the messy is you, if that is part of your authentic self, your truth, then I just realized as you were talking, maybe that's why the company is called Codeless, because you spoke about the code. If you stick to a code, if you are too regimented or rigid, I mean, a playbook is important, but the world is the messy. So you have to be able to adapt, to adjust, to evolve, to think on your feet, to go back and optimize.
yeah.
Is that why the company is actually called Codeless, or is that just another
I love that
interpretation?
interpretation. Let's say that it's that. The
Okay.
reason that the reason that the company's called Code This is actually because it was the idea that growing a business without touching a line of code. Initially, we did a bit more of like cross marketing stuff, but in recent years, it's really the idea of like merit based marketing at its heart is and merit-based marketing. By that I mean the creation of educational, value-oriented content that attracts people to you on a honest and
Yeah.
educational-oriented way, which is why I love content, by the way.
How's this for merit-based based content? Which is, I went back and thank first of all, I don't listen to my correspondence clips in advance because I want to be watching it just like my guest is and just like the audience is for the first time. So how funny is it that we happen to mention Marcus Sheridan on the show of all the 350 guests? And this just reminds me, it's like I've got this pearl of an interview sitting, May 7th, 2020, for God's sake, it's almost 2 years ago, and it's probably as evergreen, if not more relevant than ever before. So And then, oh, look, it's all about content with James Scherer as well, live now. I should go watch that.
But so it's called Codes because the idea is creating and driving growth without touching a line of code, doing it through education and value, and saying the things that deliver to true value to your prospects, rather than coding something up either within PPC or within your site that throws sales at them. Was kind of the idea behind it.
So I want to ask you, we're almost out of time, and I'm a believer in quant and qual. I was very influenced by Howard Stern as an interviewer, by Tim Ferriss, in terms of really, having a meaningful conversation, debate, dialogue, and not feeling rushed or on the clock, but also making sure it was a quality conversation. But one of the things that I noticed when looking at your clients, a common theme, a common thread, no doubt, looking at these SaaS companies, these B2B companies. What I found very interesting, excuse me, is that you spoke about this idea of injecting heart and personality and maybe flaws, incomplete sentences. What have you learned about this space? What have you learned about these companies that might be in different slight businesses, but all have the same challenge, have this inanimate, software container almost as an impediment? What do companies like these need to know about effective content strategy besides hiring codeless? That's obvious. And that also can allow them to communicate and deliver personality and kind of that brand personification, if you will.
It's challenging because I talked before about making your content production process a clearly structured one. How do you create, for money.com, for instance, we wrote 825 articles for money.com in a single year. We were doing about 75 to 80 articles every single month for them. We had 25 writers on their account, still working with them now. And how do you create engaging content at that kind of scale? And as much as, honestly, the way that you do it is you require them to have personality in each piece. What that personality looks like is entirely up to them, but it needs to be part of your brand guidelines that this is how we want to sound. We want to sound natural. We want to sound easy. We want to sound, we want to talk to the layman about complicated subjects. So where possible, put an analogy in your content. We don't want to talk negatively about our competitors. So when we do talk about competitors, we never use phrases like this, all this kind of stuff. So there is a clearly a delineation, or I wouldn't say strict, but definitely a comprehensive and provided style guideline for all of the writers on that account and all of our accounts. It doesn't mean we're making the content robotic. It means that we are requiring you to not make it robotic, if that makes any sense. The other component for all of those, what do we bring to a table, or what did they not have before working with an agency or starting with content, was that no matter who they all are up against the idea of content shock. Touched on it time and again. Monday.com, despite doing 850 articles in a year, it was still an involved process to identify what articles are we targeting, or what key phrases are we targeting with content. What does that content look like? What order are we publishing those articles? How are we supporting them versus both internally through supporting content and internal linking? How are we supporting them externally through backlink driving, through guest posting? Like, every business, no business can just throw content and see success. It doesn't work that way anymore. Content strategy has to have clear intention. Every content piece has to have clear intention. You don't have to spend $5,000 on every one of them, as I've said, but you need to know why you're writing it and what the purpose of that content piece is. So that's what an agency like Codeless or a true content strategist brings to the table, is that understanding of how am I putting this together to drive serious success that I can really feel confident in.
Well, this has been a content masterclass by the VP of Growth at Codeless, Mr. James Scherer. And James, if you want to get hold of him, if you want to follow his musings, you can do that on the Twitter. He is at JD Scherer, but not spelled that way. Most importantly, if you want to find out a little bit about Codeless, just go to codeless.io to find out how James and company can help you grow your business through content. James, thank you for coming in. And one more surprise, which is maybe your next client, we don't know. Chuck Norris is in the house, and here's what he had to say about understanding the innards inside the sausage factory of content.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.